court that could derail the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI. Now, the five have moved to court to seek clarification on whether some aspects of the Kenyan Constitution can be amended. The petition by Ndii, activist Cherotich say, James Ngondi, Wanjiru Gikonyo, and Ikal Angelei seek the intervention of the High Court to determine three key issues. The five in the petition, filed through lawyer Nelson Harvey, argue about the sense in any amendment that can harm the basic structure of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, adding that, quote-unquote, you cannot cut your leg and expect to walk. The petition has outlined some chapters that it says cannot be amended through parliament or popular opinion. These are Chapter 1 on sovereignty of the people and supremacy of the Constitution, Chapter 2 on the Republic, Chapter 4 on the Bill of Rights, Chapter 9 on the Executive, and Chapter 10 on the Judiciary. The five petitioners also want the case certified as urgent. They have demanded that it be sent to Chief Justice David Maraga for him to constitute a bench to determine the issues raised there. All right, let me go to Chero to just maybe very quickly lay for us the thinking behind the petition. There have been questions whether or not it seeks to stop the reggae. Chero, if you can shed more light for us.
Thanks very much, Ben. And I won't go into long legal descriptions and so on and so forth. Also myself liking to keep it in a very simple realms. Look, in short, this petition is, we're looking at the doctrine of the basic structure of the Constitution. We are essentially seeking guidance from the judiciary to let us know whether there are certain areas of the Constitution that cannot be touched, not even by plebiscite. What we have seen, and by the way, this is not about stopping reggae, and I want to say that all of those who jumped out and say that this is a petition to try and stop reggae must be suffering from a level of guilty conscience, because perhaps in the stopping reggae process, there were attempts to nefariously alter sections of the Constitution, which would affect those areas that we are now seeking to immunize or to inoculate. So let me break it down and say that although Articles 255 through 257 allow for amendments to the Constitution, we have to underscore that these amendments are minor. These amendments, be they parliamentary or popular, should be either to correct or to elaborate upon certain sections of the Constitution. Anything that is so large that would effectively alter the nature, the premise of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 cannot be amended that way. But we have seen since 2013, 13 unsuccessful attempts to amend the Constitution. So what we are trying to say is, can we have a ruling on what constitutes an attempt to actually repeal the Constitution? And if the people of Kenya want to repeal the Constitution, let us not do it via amendment. Let us then say we want to repeal the entire Constitution. But this loophole, 255, 256, 257, has created this space where you have mischief, where you have situations where people try to sneak things in. And so if you go back to the BBI Stopping Reggae team, let them have a look at that 156-page document, which is now, we're waiting for the final version to come out. And when you study some of the proposals being made, that they will insist will go to a plebiscite and will insist that it is Kenyans who want this against the backdrop of a flawed IEBC, we will be fundamentally altering or chopping off the leg of the Constitution and still trying to call it the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
All right. Thanks for that explanation. There's a question that Kenyans have been asking since the petition was filed, what the objective of that really is, but I'll come back to you for that. Let me go to the other panelists for their thoughts on the same. Bwana Wakili, let me begin with you. What is your take on this petition?
I think, Ben, first of all, what Kenyans must understand and appreciate is that any time the Constitution of Kenya is subjected to a litigation process, it is done in a context that is supposed to grow the constitutionalism of this country and to grow our culture of the Constitution and to also deepen our understanding of the Constitution. The doctrine of the basic structure, as it is known widely, is an Indian doctrine. It is a doctrine that says there are certain things that cannot be touched by Parliament. It was established in India because there were times when the Indian politicians tried to mutilate the Constitution through what they call Article 328 of the Indian Constitution. But when you come home here, whatever, having read the whole document by David Ndii and Angelei, you get a feeling, and which is a feeling rightly so, that whereas we have all these things that seeks to amend the Constitution, there are those parts of our Constitution that are not amendable through Parliament or through other things. And one of that is like Article 1, Ben or Chapter 1, that says that we are the sovereign people. You cannot amend our sovereignty. It is a right you are born with. You are not given because you are Kenyan. And then again, Chapter 2, when it talks about Kenya as a republic, the only time you can change or you can alter us being a republic can only be done by two or one thing. The first thing being this: if Kenya was to go to war today, that is the only time we can alter the map of Kenya. But you cannot alter how this map looks like externally through a constitutional amendment. The other thing that you have to look at it through this, the constitutional basic structure doctrine, is an issue like the human rights. The human rights we have, all the generation of rights, are rights that accrue because, or as a matter of fact, that because you are breathing. When you continue breathing, Ben, those rights accrue to you. So you cannot amend those rights that accrue to you in either positively or negatively. All right. This, as far as constitutional jurisprudence growth is concerned, I think it is a welcome intervention, and it also goes to make sure that it expounds and grows the bank of knowledge around Article 255, because when you read Article 255, you get a sense of the doctrine being stationed in Article 255, but now we are giving it life. Right. We want the courts to breathe life towards that certain article, and also to make sure that as Kenyans go to this BBI debate, I will look at the Gerotich constitutional petition as a lenses through which Kenyans should know that as we discuss this, there are those things we can discuss, and there are those things that even if you discuss, you cannot add or reduce anything. You cannot add or reduce anything in terms of us being the sovereign people who have given power. You cannot discuss or reduce the judiciary. Any society founded on democratic norms requires to have a judiciary. Even monarchies and all those dictatorships have a judiciary. All right. We need a welcome intervention, Ben.
Thank you for that, Bwana Wakili. So Rosalind, give us a scribe's view of this. The petitioners, I've had Dr. David Ndii and Cherotich here say that the objective is not to stop reggae. Do you agree?
Ben, from where I sit, there is a wisdom that informed the petitioners to move to courts. But I think there's so many fundamental issues that we are not raising. And one of the reasons is what Wakili was talking about, that this constitution is a living document. It's not static, and there are issues that can be changed, and there are issues that cannot be changed. Now, if you look at when we passed the constitution in 2010, there were issues that 80% was good, 20% was bad. Now, this constitution has lived 10 years now, and we have started a conversation, do we amend it or not to amend it? And from 2013 to now, you have seen successful processes to amend this constitution. We even had a proposal by the Senate senators forming a committee chaired by Murkomen then in the last parliament to try and amend the constitution, but they realized that the sections they were touching were actually protected in law. Now, the former Auditor General, Edward Ouko, was also appointed by government to audit this constitution. So for me, I think the petition, yes, might be valid, but I think it is too early to tell, because remember the task force came up with a report, And they've been doing a validation process, the steering committee now, chaired by Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji. And we are yet to see the final document that we can say, actually, this is what is being proposed in the BBI report. Now, the other process is, if you look at the Constitution, it lays ground on how to amend the Constitution. We have either a referendum question, if it is going to the public, or a referendum bill. Now, in this case, we don't know what is going to come out of that BBI report, because the other time, I think it was about identifying the areas that we need to amend. But maybe this last report will now give us the implementation mechanism of what exactly our leaders want to do. Now, Parliament itself has not even passed the referendum law to tell us what exactly, how do we go if we are to go to the people to amend this constitution. Now, I'll go back to the sections that we are talking about. We're talking about chapter 1, which is about supremacy. And that is a very big win for Kenyans, because that is why we always say that we donate the sovereignty to our leaders. And that's why if you look at the structure of our constitution, you find that the legislator is at the top and not the executive. And because these people exercise direct mandate from the people. Now, if you look at chapter 2 they are talking about, it is actually protected in law. It's one of the sections that you cannot just wake up and touch. Now, there is the issue of chapter 9, which is the executive, and we also have chapter 10, which is the judiciary. So for me, I think as the petition goes, because the courts are actually required to interpret the law. But I think they should have waited for the final report to come out so that we can say these are the sections that are protecting to either amend through a parliamentary initiative, which cannot work, and it has to go to the people, and what is the process that they will do. Because again, if you look at the Constitution, that report cannot just come and straight goes to Parliament. It has to go to the people, and there are only two ways. Either Kenyans collect signatures, like what we saw with the Third Way Alliance, when they tried the Punguza Mizigo, or that bill is taken to the county assemblies, which they have to garner 24 out of the 47 counties before it can come to Parliament. So
you think it's preempting?
It's preempting, because we actually don't know, because I'm sure there are going to be maybe some fundamental policies that will be proposed, administrative issues, parliamentary process, and maybe finally go to the people if there are those sections that touch on the protected sections.
All right. Dismas, I don't know if you've read the entire document, but I'm sure you've got the gist of it all. Do you agree with the petition?
Well, you know, there are many ways to look at that petition by Authoritative and Ndii and the three others. Number one, we've got a constitution, and lawyers will tell you that a constitution is a living document which is supposed to serve the interest of the people of Kenya. We, the people of Kenya, the constitution is supposed to serve our interest and not the converse. Now, the drafters of our current constitution, in their wisdom, on Articles 255, 256, and 257, gave us the opportunity to amend that constitution. And they laid out a very elaborate procedure on how you're going to do it, either through a popular initiative or through a parliamentary initiative. So the constitution itself that we voted in has got a provision on how to amend it. And nowhere does it indicate that if you want to have a minor amendments, then you go through Articles 255, 256, and 257. And then if you want to have a major amendment, then you need now another provision. In my understanding, Kenya is an organization. So if one day we wake up in the morning and we say that we want to change the constitution, if it's the people who are driving the agenda, and the people can drive the agenda through the popular initiative or through the parliamentary initiative, there is nothing which stops us Kenyans from changing that constitution. For instance, if we get to a space and we say we don't need to be a secular state anymore, we need to be a Christian state, and you go through the processes, so be it. So this idea that there are some specific parts of the constitution which are untouchable, that are cast in iron, in my view, is a bit utopian. Because the constitution itself has provided in that 255, 256, and 257 on how you are going to change it. Now, if you come up with a provision and you cast this constitution in iron, that there are some parts you'll never ever touch. What happens if you need to change those specific parts? I know we'll get examples from India. There are some say, a political party wanted to change the constitution, or even in Algeria. But we are in Kenya and we've got a constitution. And at the end of the day, we are told, if you want to change the constitution, or you want to amend the constitution, or you want to repeal the constitution, it's the people who are going to decide via a referendum. And that referendum is provided in the very constitution that we are going to say that there are some areas we need to isolate and sanitize and protect so that nobody can touch them. So in my view, it's a bit far-fetched, it's a bit utopian. Let Kenyans change, amend, or repeal the constitution as they deem fit, provided they follow the provisions of Article 255, 256, and 257. And people may come and say that, for instance, when you look at the BBI, the BBI started from the top. It's not Mura or Acacia or Mwendo is driving it. But at the end of the day, it matters not where it starts. At the end of the day, the same Mura, through a referendum, is going to give an opinion. And if the majority of Kenyans decide that we are going to amend the constitution, so be it. So in my view, we need to look at other structures that we need to protect outside the constitution. Because if you go back in history, when President Kibaki took office with the old constitution, he still delivered good value with an old constitution. Right now, we are told that we have the best constitution, but look what is happening to Oscar Sudi. It's essentially, detention without trial till Professor Ngugi comes in and says, no, this one cannot happen. Essentially what we lack in Kenya is good manners. We have bad manners, and we cannot be running to change the constitution at every slightest opportunity, when in fact, it's our leadership who are abusing the constitution.
Thank you for that. Let me just a moment. Let me go to Mark Bichache. We hear his thoughts, so that we can give Cherotich a chance to maybe respond to some of the issues raised. Mark, what are your initial thoughts on the petition?
Well, let me put on my strategic communications hat and answer from that perspective. Number one, the fact that the petition is registered as urgent is a very telling sign that it will be understood that this is urgent because of BBI, because it cannot be urgent for any other reason. There's got to be a motivating factor to certify any kind of petition as urgent. And therefore, through that lens, this petition will be understood as an attempt, A, at stopping BBI, and B, more likely, at pigeonholing BBI. What this petition effectively does, if it does go through, then it effectively tells the BBI crafting team that there are certain parts of this constitution that you're not going to touch because the judiciary has ruled in a certain way. But even as we look at eternity clauses and constitutional amendments, we must then refer to the first chapter of that same constitution, that the people are sovereign. And therefore, the will of the people expressed through referendum must always be supreme to the constitution. And I know I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you for free that if the people of Kenya are the ones who voted in the constitution 2010, then they are the same ones who can amend it. They're the same ones who can actually even get rid of it in entirety. Also, it is quite dangerous to say that something like the Bill of Rights cannot be adjusted, because I am aware the world over there is debate, for example, on making the internet a basic human right. Now, the internet is not hundreds of years old, yet there are countries, Estonia is a good example, that has made it a basic right for its people. When we make constitutions, we do not make constitutions because we like Ruto and we hate Uhuru, or we like Uhuru and we hate Ruto. We make constitutions because they are going to outlive and outlast us, and therefore we make constitutions to which many generations after can refer. And if we are going to cast things into absolute stone, then we will be in trouble. But that said, I do agree with the petitioners when they say we need to protect the constitution from frivolous and selfish attempts to amend it to meet selfish political gains. That goes without saying. So we need to go there with a proper balanced mind and to understand that generally speaking, constitutional amendments have been good for this country, and we will start with the repeal of Section 2A in 1992.
Well said. So constitution making for posterity and for everybody, not for the political class. Well said. Kipchumba, maybe a quick comment. You wanted to say something before we let Chero talk about some of those issues.
I just wanted to correct Dismas Mokua from using there are two constitutional doctrines that should not be used interchangeably. There is the doctrine of basic structure as a doctrine, and then we have the doctrine of constitution without constitutionalism. That is where the excesses like the ones for Oscar Sudi falls under. And then we have the issue of eternity clauses. The issue of eternity clauses, although they are different in constitutional infrastructure from the one for basic structure, the difference comes in their differentiation of application.
All right. Thanks for that. I hope Dismas got the correction from yourself. Cherotich, maybe you can try to pick out what some of the issues your fellow panelists raised, but maybe tell us this. What was the objective of the petition? What do you want to achieve with it?
This, thanks so much, Ben. This petition seeks orders, two specific orders. Order number one is this a declaratory order on this doctrine of basic structure of the Constitution, which means we are asking the judicial system to tell us, the judiciary to tell us about the implicit limitations to constitutional amendments. So that's one order. We want to understand, we need that advisory from the judiciary. And then what we are seeking also is the court's intervention to immunize 7 chapters of the Constitution. Now, these 7 chapters, I'm especially concerned about the executive, judiciary, devolution, but there are all these other 4 that I haven't mentioned that are equally important. But I want, if there's one thing I would like Kenyans to take away from this, number one, even though it has been certified urgent, and I believe we will be heard on, we will be heard on the 7th of October, I want to just underscore that this is not preemptive, because the history of amending the Constitution to suit people's political expediencies started way back from 1963. This is not a new occurrence in the history of Kenya. And the second thing I would like Kenyans to understand is there's a big difference between amending and repealing. There's nothing wrong with amendments. Amend away. Amend is to improve, to correct, to elaborate upon. But amendments are not in nature meant to be major, so major that you're chopping off a leg or chopping off an arm. Now, if the people, and the people are sovereign, I'm a Kenyan, you're a Kenyan, we are sovereign. If we really want to chop that leg off the Constitution, then we should follow the repeal process, which has its own process to follow. So what we're actually saying is to stop this interchangeable behavior between amendments when actually you're sneaking in a repeal type of proposal. And you know, the parliament that has a duty of care, a legislative duty of care to its electorate, should be there to protect and safeguard wananchi from these types of nefarious amendments, when the very same legislature itself has been busy trying to pass through amendments. If you look at Kioni's committee and you look at all the different, in fact, let's go back to the same BBI. If you go back to BBI, some of the things that were proposed in the first report that was released, you can already see they have been drafted somewhere, just waiting for that moment to be snuck through. And we are saying enough of sneaking in through things that chop off the leg of the Constitution. We reserve the right to either amend or repeal. So there's a difference between an amendment and a difference between repeal. And people don't like to go the repeal route because it is an entire engaging process. By the time we got to 2010, how many decades had passed? It was very exhausting, very laborious, and we brought in a new constitution. So if we're going to respect Constitution of Kenya 2010, let us stick to amendments and not these major changes that alter the framework, the basic structure of the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
All right, do you believe that this petition kind of preempts the BBI report, which is still to come out, which will tell Kenyans what the proponents are seeking to do exactly?
Jocelyn said that we were a little bit premature. That prematurity would then mean that this petition was lodged just to react to BBI. No, this petition is a protective petition over the Constitution of Kenya. And if for any reason, whatever is being proposed in the final BBI report that we have not seen proposes something that would chop off the leg or the arm of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it will also be dealt with there. That is why we are seeking declaratory orders, so that we understand what constitutes the leg or the arm and we place limitations. So the BBI folks who may have had some mischief or nefarious agenda behind these so-called amendments that would either be parliamentary or through a popular referendum, they should understand that we are also challenging in advance, proactively, them and anybody else in future who wants to come in and ride in an almost repeal-like amendment within the framework of an amendment. We're saying that should no longer be possible. Let us protect the Constitution of Kenya.
Thank you, Cherotich, for clarifying all that for us. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll come back for final thoughts on all this. When we come back, we'll be getting into real politics. Taking a look at the latest intrigues in the race to State House. ODM leader Raila Odinga visited the county of Bomet yesterday, the hometown of Deputy President William Ruto, where he said that